When Paul wrote back to Thessalonica after encountering some dangers there and starting a church in that city, he had received some reports from others about their work. Good morning, I'm Pastor Ernie Lewis of the Blue Point Church in Sisney, Illinois, with your thoughts for Thursday. After leaving Thessalonica abruptly because of an angry mob that was attacking Christians in that city, Paul hears that these believers have actually grown and continued in the work. He writes in 1 Thessalonians chapter 1 and verse 6, "And you became followers of us and of the Lord, having received the word in much affliction, with joy of the Holy Spirit, so that you became examples to all in Macedonia and Achaia who believe. For from you the word of the Lord has sounded forth, not only in Macedonia and Achaia, but also in every place." You see, these were difficult times, and the regions where Paul was preaching about Christ had stirred up a lot of trouble. Paul had already spent a night in prison in Philippi after he and Silas had been beaten by the authorities. Now a mob has caused an uproar in Thessalonica and even taken some security from Jason and some of his friends because they found out he had been housing Paul and Silas. The claim of the people in that city was, "These who have turned the world upside down have now come here to our city." Now, isn't that a great, wouldn't you love for your church to be known that way? Those who have turned the world upside down. So Paul says that these believers of the Lord have received him in much affliction, but with joy because the Holy Spirit has confirmed their salvation during Paul's ministry there. And he says, "You became examples to all in Macedonia and Achaia who believe." It would be difficult to live the Christian life in such a hostile environment as they were going through in Macedonia in those days. Paul's friends had hustled he and Silas out of town in the middle of the night in order to send them on to Berea for their safety. But these troubles didn't stop those new believers from living out their faith in the city where they were. I'm sure that if they were examples to Macedonia and Achaeans, then they were living like believers that others could see Christ in them and follow in the very same way. He goes on to say, "From you the word sounded out, not only in Macedonia and Achaia, but also in every place." It seems that wherever Paul and Silas and Timothy traveled on their missionary journeys, they heard others talking about them. He says in verse 8, "Your faith toward God has gone out so that we do not need to say anything." Man, wouldn't it be great if you were out there spreading the gospel and already people were saying, "Well, I've already heard about Jesus Christ from those guys over in Thessalonica." He says the greatest testimony they heard from these people is how they turned from idols to serve the true and living God and to wait for his dear Son from heaven. Now that is a testimony. Life change is really what the world notices in believers. They don't care where we go to church. They don't care how we carry our Bible. They want to see a difference in our lives. And I hope today that we show that to a lost world so that they too can see Christ in us. The church at Thessalonica came to follow in much affliction, and they continued as examples to all them around them. I want you to think today, what kind of example am I of Christ in my community, in my home, in my workplace? What kind of example should I be for him today?